Hey everyone, NFI Hammer here, and in this video a beginner will attempt to paint a Haemotrope Reactor. Let's get started. So for those following along in my journey, I am a beginner in the Warhammer and miniature painting hobby. I've only been painting for just about 9.5 months now, and mostly that has been building my Necron army. However, I have been trying to do some terrain, and this is Imperium issue 27, and it comes with this Haemotrope Reactor, as well as some interesting other lore and tidbits in the magazine. So every time I've done terrain before, I've actually found it really challenging, so I thought this would be an interesting opportunity to see if I've gotten any better or I'm still finding it hard. So I'm going to kind of deviate a bit from the color scheme because I've painted some pipes already and I want them to be consistent with those pipes. The pipes was the first time I also painted plasma, which didn't really work very well, so I recommend go checking out those videos if you haven't. So I'm just cutting it all off from the sprue, and this used to be sold from Games Workshop for $80 dues, or about $40 US, but it doesn't seem like they actually sell these anymore. You can still get them from other hobby games, and it was even rules specifically in 9th edition for hive shields that these reactors played a part, but they don't seem to exist anymore for 10th edition. The assembly was really straightforward, as you can see. That's kind of almost idiot proof, so I managed to do it. However, I did glue the pipe on, and then I later yanked it off before the glue had dried because I realized that I wanted to kind of paint that part separately. I could also probably have done a better job with some of the gaps between the two. I need some either green stuff or make some grey goo, but next time. I've also been experimenting with airbrushing, so I don't know if you've checked out the video or not, but there's an airbrushing video for beginners that I did. I kind of had mixed results with it, but mainly the main takeaway was that it's a whole different skill set. So if beginners want to try it, they can. If they don't have to. But what I'm doing here is just mixing some Leadbelcher with some Lahmium medium, and I'm just spraying that over the model. With the model, I did a base coat of white flat primer from Bunnings, which is our hardware store in Australia, and that costs about $17 dues. So I'm just trying to cover everywhere here with silver except for the right side of the face because that needs to stay white, so I thought there's no point in painting it silver and then white again. I'm also probably not giving a very good coverage. I probably could go over it a few more times, but as I said, I'm kind of learning, especially learning the airbrushing. I did find that it does apply a very thin coat, which was good, because usually when I apply base coats, I use way too thick a paint, which is one of the things I'm trying to work on. So it's definitely got some potential. But I did notice that the Leadbelcher colour here versus when it comes out of the pot is slightly different. So if you were really paranoid about touch-ups not perfectly colour matching, I would recommend to go all over it in Leadbelcher paint directly from the pot, but I didn't bother with that. Overall though, I think it looks pretty solid. I really liked how this pipe here turned out. It kind of maintained all the original details and everything. I was getting a bit worried about this model though because there's so many little intricate details, but when I say little, I mean big compared to a mini. So that's what I've kind of been struggling with terrain, is that there's just so much to paint. So here I'm painting just these little rims on the side with some Runelord Brass, and I'm just trying to create some visual interest. When it's all one colour, in this case that Leadbelcher silver, it's kind of boring, so I was trying to pick out little elements to paint different metallic colours so that it kind of creates something more dynamic and interesting to look at. I didn't really have too much of a system. I just, if something was silver, then I would paint the next thing brass, just to try and give it some conflict. So I then moved on to Runefang Steel, which is this very bright silver. So I was painting the inside halo, which kind of reminds me of a Stargate. And I was painting that this silver color, again, just to kind of create some more dynamicness with it, rather than it just being a monocolor. Probably not using the right size brush for this, it did take a lot longer. And then with the pipes, I'm using the edges of the pipes and I'm just painting that silver, kind of like an edge highlight, but it also helps it stand out a little bit more. Next I moved on to black, using Abaddon Black from the Citadel range, and I'm just painting in the gold panels just so that the background lettering can shine through, as well as I just noticed there was this, you know, conduit pipe thing is black, as well as these rims. I couldn't really paint it copper because there's already copper next to it, so I thought this helps breaks it up. And then moving on to the sigil, so the Mechanicus sigil is this face that's half black, half white on a half black, half white background, but inverted. So I was just trying to color it in here, and then I also noticed that there's little ones on the ends of the pipe as well. So for the white, I'm using a Corax White, which is just one color off pure white, but I hadn't cleaned my brush properly, so actually I kind of made it a bit grey when I was painting it here. So a beginner tip is make sure you've cleaned off all the black before you start using your brush again. Found this background was a bit tricky as well with all the pipes, and especially on these ends here, it's very hard to try and get everything sorted. So as I mentioned before, I did do plasma and I choose an unusual color of purple. So in here I'm doing purple in the background here where the plasma rings are, as well as in the center, just so that they all tie thematically together with this purple plasma color. This was probably a little bit too dark in hindsight. I should have probably used like a lilac color instead, just to make it pop a little bit more, because it's quite forgettable. I have this Mr. Hobby metallic blue-green color that I use for sort of glass, and I'm just painting in all the glass elements here with that color. I find that because it's got that metallic quality, it has a reflection aspect to it, and that just makes it kind of pop a little bit more than just a regular blue. Once that was done, it was time to move on to Mephiston Red. So for the heavy Imperium metal, I use Mephiston Red here to kind of signify that. So I'm just kind of painting the frame at the bottom, this Mephiston Red color. I did get paint in too many places because I'm using a very big brush. So that's, and I had some on my finger as well that I got onto the model. So I was kind of a bit disappointed with the quality of my painting in this video. I feel like I have gotten better, but I don't know if I just wasn't, you know, focusing well enough, or I was just distracted, but I did make a lot of mistakes. Moving on to Retributor Armour. This is the gold color. So there wasn't really much gold on this model, just these sort of engraved plates signifying the model number, trying to avoid getting it into the recesses, and then also trying to paint the tubes as well, but I did get a bit of paint into this one, which was a bit frustrating. Then I've got Administratum Grey. So I use this for corrugated pipes, so any pipes with like a rib texture. So for these I use this grey colour, which kind of looks very similar to the silver, but when you apply a wash over it, I find that the wash sticks in the grooves, and then it kind of does create more of a plasticky texture, which is sort of what I'm going for. They've also, on the other side of the model, they've got these thick tubes on the rim as well. Then I was back to Runelord Brass again, and this time I was just trying to pick out some more details, such as this furnace part in the middle, because I realized it was still too silver, and I painted the gauge rectangle as well, and just pretty much anywhere else that looked a bit too boring. Then with Runefang Steel, I'm just painting these little rectangles, or I guess not really rectangles, but diamonds on here just to create a bit more visual interest around the sides. However, I did do a really messy job with it. And then with Mephiston Red, I'm back painting the front door of the furnace with that color, just again to create some layers, so it's red on silver on brass, you know, just to create some more interesting things. I actually found it quite hard to get it into all the grooves here, but without doing too thick a job of paint. I wasn't quite sure what to do with the handles, so I just painted them red for now. But later I'll come back and paint them Abaddon Black, just because it was a bit too much red. I'm also colouring in the eyes as well to be red, to just kind of give them a bit of a scary, ominous glow. So I noticed the black-white line at the top here wasn't very straight because I was just freehanding it. So I thought I would get a bit of masking paper and try and paint off one side of it, and then that way it will come out straight. So this is a technique that I haven't tried before, so I wasn't quite sure how it was going to turn out. So I'm just trying to paint the Corax White into here. And then I realized I should probably touch up some of the other areas as well. So now for the big reveal, and it was a failure. The paint somehow went underneath the tape. So it's probably even worse than what it was at the beginning. So this did not work. If you've got any ideas what I did wrong or any other attempts, please let me know in the comments. So now that I've painted the pipes, it's time to put the glue back on. I was trying to make it straight because these should be up high, but I actually probably didn't do a very good job of this, and it's a little bit off, which is probably going to annoy me, but it's not too bad. However, the model was still looking too clean to me, so I thought that I would go and do some Nuln Oil, and I would paint in all the crevices of the model and just try and, you know, bring some depth to it as well as give it some wear and tear, because I just thought the model itself was just too clean. When it, you know, in the grim dark future, you know, nothing's this pure. So I'm just trying to avoid putting it into any of the pressure gauges, and on the black side I didn't mind putting it in, but on the white side I didn't really want to put that in, the shading in, because I was worried that it would come out too grey or dark. And then on the tops here where I made a bit of a mess, I also went and just added some more Nuln Oil just to darken it up a little bit. So this is the finished product. I'm not 100% happy with it, but it did end up taking a lot of time. I was just ready to call it as done. Nothing is perfect. I definitely think terrain is, you know, pushing all my skills to the max. I don't know exactly why that is, but I just find that I maybe don't have the patience for it, or yeah, I'm not quite sure. If you've got any ideas or have you found terrain hard, please let me know in the comments below. If you've made it this far as well, consider leaving a like or a subscribe. It really helps the YouTube algorithm gods out, and it also helps my channel out. It's been, you know, such a pleasure to get welcomed by the miniature painting community, and I've really enjoyed it over the last month, so I just wanted to say thank you to everybody. Until next time, catch you later.